Well, it seems to me that in both of our beautiful scriptures today, beautiful Psalm 27 and this great story from Luke, that at their very core, the profoundness of these scriptures is this sense of longing for peace, longing for safety, longing for happiness. It's a very human emotion, our longings. It's part of our hoping, our dreams, our wanting. It's true for all of us. And these very old words, the words of the psalmist, are possibly 3,000 years old. We don't know for sure when they were written. But those words, remember what you heard. Though an army encamps against me, yet God will hide me in the day of trouble. I shall see the goodness of the Lord. All the way through that psalm, as the psalmist recounts these troubles, all of these things, yet it is a song about trust in God. No matter how serious the trouble, trust in God. And then we go into this gospel where Jesus is facing very real danger from Herod. We know that. All of the Herods, there were several kings whose name was Herod, were cruel and ruthless. Cruel and ruthless. And we know what will happen with this Herod. The gospel starts out with a warning of serious danger. And yet Jesus turns it to speak about healing people and bringing good news to people, even as he knows he must continue towards Jerusalem. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that represents all cities, the city that represents all humanity. The name itself means peace. And yet it represents what we know happens everywhere where sin just boils up, corruption and evil and manipulation and lies and mocking. And it still happens. It is the city for Jews and for Jesus where the temple was, where you were to go to rightly worship God. And yet was a city under the control of the Romans and dominated by corruption. He calls it the city that kills the prophets and stones those sent to it. I think some of the words in here are so familiar to us even today. It doesn't matter what's going on in our world. All we have to do is just listen to the news, any news. And of course, the news is trying to make it even be more terrible, so we'll keep listening. So we get ourselves all worked up and all upset, and we forget about the promise of the psalmist and the promise that Jesus gives us of God's love, no matter the danger. Our Christian faith is not supposed to succumb to this simple-mindedness about the whole world which God created is evil, because we know throughout the Bible that faith is built upon complexity, that contradiction of danger and safety, the power of trusting in God. Jesus turns this whole lesson from warning into faithfulness. He has no fear of that fox, or any of the other dangers that are very real, even as he knows how real it is. Our lesson is that when you put danger and safety together, it seems counterintuitive, which it is, other than when we embrace the great mystery of faith that our Savior willingly goes to his death to overturn the power of evil. He willingly chooses that. he speaks about the third day, and we know what is the implication of that third day. It is nothing less than the message of salvation. The message of salvation that no matter what, betrayal, death, torture, placed in a grave, nothing will separate us from God's love. Nothing. Nothing. Jesus' selfless act brings us salvation, and it's free. Well, in this really rather short gospel lesson, Jesus artfully uses this metaphor of the fox and then of chickens. How he talks about how he longs like a mother hen to gather the people of Jerusalem. I don't know about you, but I know that foxes and chickens don't mix. You don't have to have grown up on a farm to know that. We all know that. And if I had to choose which one I wanted to be, well, the fox is shrewd and sly. Something, the world isn't easy. I'd kind of like to know that I can take care of things, take care of myself, bring on my own safety. That's what we get appealed to. I don't want to be a helpless chicken. And yet, Jesus makes this clear. He turns this metaphor around. He uses the beauty of an image of God as a mother hen. Make no mistake about it. Now, throughout the Bible, there are references to God in words of birds, like an eagle, like the birds of the air, like a hen. I'd say it's a little easier to think about God as an eagle, soaring, but a chicken, a hen. But no mistake. Well, I've got a story to read about chickens, and I'm not going to read the whole story. I hope you'll hear the essence in it. It's written by an Episcopal priest and theological writer named Barbara Brown Taylor. And she lives on a farm in Georgia where she teaches and she writes. And so I want us to listen to this story, so sit back and listen closely. The title of it is Barnyard Behavior. In the spirit of St. Francis, I know that my neighbors really are the various creatures with whom I live my life on a daily basis. These creatures include the red-tailed hawks, the white-tailed deer, the red foxes, the wild turkeys that require nothing from me but to leave them alone. But I have these domesticated horses, dogs, cats, and chickens that depend on me for everything, from their daily bread to their annual immunizations. Now, some humans judge me a little daft in this regard, but I believe I'm on solid theological ground because God's covenant with Noah included every living creature. And when you read the book of Psalms all the way through, it is hard to miss the references to God's wings. So when I compare human behavior to bird behavior, it's enough to make me wonder which of us was really created in the image of God. I care for a large neighborhood of chickens, and the white silkies are my favorites. They are fantastic-looking birds with tufts of fluff on their heads and feathers on their feet. From their beaks to their toes, they are covered with soft white plumage that never really becomes feathers. Consequently, they do not fly, but they nest on the ground, which is why I keep them in a pen instead of letting them roam free. Given their evolutionary disadvantages, it's amazing that they still exist. But we know even from Marco Polo's diaries, they've been around a long time. I first discovered them when I needed a foster mother for an orphan guinea chick. I had heard that silkies were good mothers, so I shopped around, and I found some for sale over at the Royston Market. After a little bargaining, I had one rooster, 4 teenagers, and 2 hens in my crate. And I saw a gray hen strutting around the pen. "What's she?" I asked. "A blue silkie," the chicken lady said. a cross between black and white. How much? $6. Chicken lady said, impressing me with the gulf between price and worth. That blue-gray hen was stunning. Soft herringbone feathers, the color of Irish tweed, the black eyes with which she studied me were perfectly round. And when I reached out to touch her, she pecked me, but only for show, because it was love at first sight. When the Silkies and I got home, I saved her for the orphaned chick. First, I lay on the grass while she and the baby watched each other through the mesh of the cage. Then I placed her inside while she and the baby froze. The baby cheeped. The hen did not move a feather. The baby cheeped again. The hen stayed right where she was. The baby took a few steps toward her. I held my breath. The gray hen lifted her wings, and that baby scooted right into that open door. When I checked on them an hour later, all I could see was a little guinea chick's head poking out from under her wings. $6. What a deal. After she raised that baby, she joined the rest of the chickens in the pen, and one evening, something broke into the pen and ate her and the rooster. When I went down to feed them in the morning, all I found were a few silky feathers tilting in the wind. But her sisters have picked up where she left off. When my mille-fleur chickens lay eggs they will not sit on, I put them under a silky that sets until they hatch. When I hatch Old English bantams in the incubator, I wait until the sun goes down, and then I take the babies down to a silky pen and slide them under a sleepy hen. The next morning, they're all trailing along behind her as she shows them the ropes of staying alive. Look, food, she squawks when I throw some corn, and they all come running. Run for cover, she yells, when the shadow of a hawk passes overhead, and they go diving under her wings. This is counterintuitive. If this hen is into the preservation of her species, she ought to be looking out for her own babies and let the others go hang. But she does not. She accepts all comers, no questions asked. She has never seen a chick she didn't like. I ought to trust her by now, yet every time I introduce her to a new baby with nowhere else to go, I feel the back of my throat tighten up. Please, please don't peck this baby. It's so little. It has never laid eyes on a mama but you. Then I set the chick in the cage, and I sit down where I can watch. The baby cheeps. The hen does not move. The baby cheeps again. The hen stays where she is. The baby takes a few steps, and the hen lifts her wings. Come to mama. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how often have I desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing. Jesus must have had chicken neighbors too. From them, he learned about God's wings. Watching them, he knew what he was to do. One cluck from him, and I know too.